For over 13 years, fate has allotted the current rulers time for their testing and proving. But they pass the harshest judgment on themselves by, through the nature of their current propaganda, admitting the failure of their own achievements. They once wanted to govern Germany better for the future than it had been in the past, and yet, as the result of their art of governance, all they can truly state is that Germany and the German people still exist. In the November days of 18, they solemnly promised to lead our people, and especially the German worker, toward a better economic future. Today, after having had nearly 14 years to fulfill their promise, they cannot cite a single German profession as a witness to the merit of their actions. The German farmer is impoverished, the middle class ruined, the social hopes of many millions of people destroyed, a third of all working German men and women are without jobs and therefore without income, the Reich, the municipalities and the states are over-indebted, all finances are in disarray, and every treasury is empty. What more could they possibly have destroyed? But the worst of all is the destruction of trust among our people, the elimination of all hope and all confidence. In 13 years, they have not managed in any way to mobilize the latent forces within our people. On the contrary, in their fear of the nation's awakening, they set people against each other, city against countryside, employee against civil servant, manual laborer against intellectual worker, Bavarian against Prussian, Catholic against Protestant, and so on, and vice versa. The activism of our race was expended only internally. Outwardly, however, all that remained were fantasies, fantastic hopes in cultural conscience, international law, world conscience, ambassadors' conferences, the League of Nations, the Second International, the Third International, proletarian solidarity, and so on. And the world treated us accordingly. Thus, Germany slowly declined, and only a madman can hope that the very forces which brought about this decline could now bring about its resurrection. If the existing parties truly wanted to save Germany, why haven't they done so already? But if they did want to save Germany, why did it not happen? If the men of these parties truly intended it, then their programs must have been flawed. But if their programs were correct, then either they themselves did not sincerely want it, or they were too ignorant or too weak. Now, after 13 years in which they destroyed everything in Germany, the time has finally come for their own removal. Whether today's parliamentary parties survive is not important, but it is necessary to prevent the complete ruin of the German nation. However, overcoming these parties is a duty, because in order to survive themselves, they must continually tear the nation apart. For years, they have convinced the German worker that he could save himself alone. For years, they made the farmer believe that only his own organization could help him. The middle class was supposed to be rescued from ruin by middle-class parties and the economy by economic parties. The Catholic had to seek refuge with the Center Party and the Protestant with the Christian Social People's Service. Yes, in the end, homeowners received their own political representation just like tenants, employees, and civil servants. But these attempts to divide the nation into classes, estates, professions, and denominations and to lead them piece by piece toward economic prosperity and a better future have now definitively failed. On the day our National Socialist movement was founded, we were already convinced that the fate of the German people is inextricably linked with the fate of the entire nation. If Germany falls, the worker will not prosper in social happiness, nor will the entrepreneur, and neither will the farmer be saved, nor the middle class. No, the ruin of the Reich, the decline of the nation, is the ruin and decline of everyone. No religious denomination and no individual German tribe will be able to escape the common fate either. On the day the National Socialist movement was founded, we were already well aware that it would not be the proletariat triumphing over the bourgeoisie, nor the bourgeoisie triumphing over the proletariat, but rather that in the end, international high finance would inevitably become the sole victor over both. And so it has come to pass. Recognizing this decline, 13 years ago, I founded a new movement with a handful of people, which even in its name was meant to proclaim the new national community. There is no socialism that does not have the power of the spirit at its disposal, no social happiness that is not protected by the strength of your nation, indeed, that does not derive its very foundation from it. But there is also no nation and thus no nationalism, unless the million-strong army of intellectual workers is joined by the million-strong army of manual laborers and the million-strong army of farmers. As long as nationalism and socialism march as separate ideas, they will be defeated by their united opponent. On the day when these two ideas merge into one, they will be invincible. And who can deny that in a time when everything in Germany is breaking down and decaying, when everything in the economy and political life is coming to a standstill, and in fact reaching its end, a single organization experienced an unprecedented and remarkable rise. 13 years ago, I began this work of German unification with 7 men, and today in our ranks there are over 13 million. But it is not the number that matters, but their inner worth. 13 million people of all professions and classes, 13 million workers, farmers and intellectuals, 13 million Catholics and Protestants, members of all German regions and tribes have formed an inseparable bond. And 13 million have recognized that the future of everyone lies only in the common struggle and in the shared success of all. Millions of farmers have now realized that it is not important for them alone to understand the necessity of their own existence, but that it is necessary to inform the other social and professional classes about the German farmer and to win them over to his cause. And millions of workers have likewise recognized today that despite all theories, their future does not lie in some international movement, but in the realization by their fellow countrymen that without the German farmer and the German worker, there is no German strength. In the same way, millions of bourgeois intellectuals have come to understand how insignificant their own self-importance is if the millions of the rest of the people do not finally grasp the importance of German intelligence. 13 years ago, we National Socialists were mocked and ridiculed. Today, our opponents have lost their laughter. A community of believers has emerged, one that will gradually overcome the prejudices of class madness and social snobbery. A community of believers determined to take up the fight for the preservation of our race, not because they are Bavarians or Prussians, Württembergers or Saxons, Catholics or Protestants, workers or civil servants, citizens or employees and so on, but because they are all Germans. In this sense of inseparable unity, mutual respect has grown. From respect came understanding, and from understanding the tremendous force that moves us all. That is why we National Socialists enter every election with only one intention: to resume our work the very next day for the internal reorganization of our national body. For we are not fighting for mandates or ministerial posts, but for the German people whom we want and will unite once again into an inseparable community of destiny. May the Almighty, who has so far allowed us to grow in 13 years from 7 men to 13 million, continue to grant that from these 13 million one day a single German people will emerge. But we believe in this people, we fight for this people, and for this people we are, if necessary, ready, just as thousands of our comrades before us, to commit ourselves with body and soul. If the nation fulfills its duty, then one day must come that will restore to us a realm of honor and freedom, of work and of bread.